Welcome to Tech Blueprint, a window that lets you know the latest technology news in the world. Semiconductors, this little thing that has caused a lot of fighting all over the world, has recently caused a lot of trouble in Japan. TSMC, a company with a big brother status in the chip industry, went to Kumamoto, Japan to build a factory. Not only did it go into production smoothly, it also aroused the ambition of the Japanese government and enterprises to realize the chip revival dream. What's more interesting is that TSMC's third Japanese factory plan has been put on the agenda, and Japanese local companies are not to be outdone and have joined this chip competition. Is this a technical competition or a game of interests? It's hard to say who will have the last laugh. The chip market in 2024 is more competitive than ever. The global demand for chips continues to rise, but production capacity has never kept up. Especially in industries such as automobiles and artificial intelligence, the importance of chips is like food. As a former semiconductor power, Japan has gradually fallen behind in recent years, which has made many people call it a pity. However, Japan has not been willing to admit defeat. Especially with the support of TSMC, it has rekindled hope. TSMC, the world's largest chip foundry, has been based in Taiwan in the past, but in recent years, it has set its sights on overseas markets. In December 2024, the first TSMC plant in Kumamoto, Japan, has officially started production, and the second plant is also under construction. What's more surprising is that they also plan to build a third plant in 2030. At the same time, Rapidus, a domestic Japanese company, is also laying out a 2-nanometer chip production line in Hokkaido, trying to compete with TSMC in the high-end market. It can be said that this chip war has been fully launched, and the winner is not only related to the success or failure of the company, but may also determine the future technological status of a country. The starting point of all this can be traced back to the in-depth cooperation between TSMC and the Japanese government. The original goal of TSMC's Kumamoto plant was to fill the gap in Japan's 12 to 28 nanometer chip process. Although this technology is not the most advanced, it is still very critical in the automotive and consumer electronics fields. The Japanese government also saw this and directly invested 476 billion yen in subsidies to help TSMC build a factory. At the same time, domestic chip companies in Japan are also taking action. Rapidus' 2-nanometer factory in Hokkaido is under construction and is scheduled to be put into production in 2030. The goal of this factory is to seize the top of global chip manufacturing. TSMC's third factory also happens to target a similar high-end market. As a result, a competition for resources, technology and talent has quietly begun. What's more complicated is that although Japan has funds and determination, it lacks sufficient high-end technical talents. TSMC chairman Liu Deng even made it clear that it will take at least a few years for Japan to train engineers who can produce advanced chips. This dilemma of having money but no technology has become the biggest obstacle to the revival of Japan's chip industry. The opening of TSMC's Kumamoto factory has become a landmark event. On December 27, 2024, Kumamoto Prefecture Governor Kimura Kei personally announced that the factory had begun mass production. This is currently the most advanced chip manufacturing base in Japan, producing 12 to 28 nanometer logic semiconductors, and has begun supplying Sony and Denso. However, on the other hand, Rapidus' 2-nanometer factory is accelerating construction, with the goal of surpassing TSMC's technological advantages in Japan. The technological gap between the two is like a chip version of the tortoise and the hare race. Although TSMC is temporarily ahead, Rapidus is backed by the Japanese government and local resources, and its momentum should not be underestimated. What's more interesting is that the cooperative relationship between TSMC and Japanese companies is also quite dramatic. Investors of JASM, the operating company of TSMC's Kumamoto plant, include Japanese giants such as Sony, Denso, and Toyota. These Japanese companies are both investors, customers, and even competitors. For example, Sony relies on JASM to manufacture chips while exploring self-developed technologies. This cooperative and competitive relationship makes people sigh that the mall is like a battlefield. At the same time, another chip company in Taiwan, China, Powerchip Semiconductor, TSMC, also joined the battle. In 2024, they announced that they would invest 800 billion yen to build a semiconductor factory in Miyagi Prefecture, Japan, and plan to mass-produce 40 nanometers and 55 nanometers chips in 2027. Although these technologies are not as high-end as 2 nanometers, they avoid TSMC's main battlefield, which is quite smart. Why does TSMC dare to invest so much in Japan? There are actually 3 reasons behind it. First, the huge subsidies from the Japanese government. The government has paid 476 billion yen for the first plant in Kumamoto alone, not to mention the 732 billion yen for the second plant. If the third plant can also be built smoothly, the subsidy amount is estimated to be even higher. It can be said that the Japanese government's desire for semiconductors has reached the point of selling everything. Second, the potential of the Japanese market. Although Japan's chip manufacturing technology is backward, its market demand has always been strong. Especially in the automotive and consumer electronics fields, there is a huge demand for mid-range chips. TSMC saw this and decided to deploy in Kumamoto. Third, the background of the global chip shortage. As the industry leader, TSMC naturally hopes to further consolidate its market position by expanding its production capacity. And Japan, as a relatively stable production base, also gives TSMC enough sense of security. However, the cooperation between TSMC and Japanese companies has not been smooth sailing. For example, Japan lacks the high-end talents required for advanced chip manufacturing, which once limited TSMC's production efficiency. Even now, many of JASM's employees are engineers sent from Taiwan. Liu Deng even admitted that Japan will have to wait until at least 2030 to cultivate enough technical talents. At the same time, Japanese companies are also accelerating their catch-up. Once Rapidus 2-nanometer factory goes into production, it will become TSMC's biggest competitor. The addition of Powerchip Semiconductor has made the situation even more confusing. It can be said that this chip war is not only a contest of technology, but also a game of national strategy. So far, TSMC's layout in Japan has begun to bear fruit. The first factory has been successfully mass-produced, the second factory is expected to be put into production in 2027, and the third factory is also under planning. And domestic chip companies in Japan are also catching up with the support of the government. It can be foreseen that this competition about chips is far from over.